Not a day goes by where I didn't wish I fed mine into my lappies.
You did not.
No, I did. That's why it was hard.
No,
It was hard when I made
no.
the list. I was just like, well, I gotta throw a Martin on there.
Oh my God.
It's funny that you decide to describe him the way you do, because on the inside, I'm dying right now.
Oh my God, I cannot believe you did that. What's going on, everybody? It's Childish. We're back at it again with the next episode of Educate and Dominate, the one-on-one interview series where we take some of the top names in the game and get their insights so we can bring your game to the next level. Today we have a very special video for you all. We're going to be talking about some of the top Nat 4 game changers out there that we may be seeing in the Guild Arena battle. And to help me out with that today is the runner-up of the 2017 Mobile Masters Invitational, my man, Mr. Koopa Troopa. How you doing, boss?
Hello, Childish. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you back. If you guys didn't know, we actually did an Educate and Dominate video last year. It was super fun. We also talked about some PvP content. I had a blast with it, and I'm super excited to get back into your mind and try to get some ideas going our way. So outside of that, my man, what is new with you? I know a lot of people, we haven't had you on the channel for quite some time. Tell me a little bit about what's going on in these past couple of months for you.
For me, I just recently moved across the country to Austin, Texas, so I've been getting settled in here. It's been great. It's hot, but no, I've been enjoying things. Still been playing a lot of Summoner's War. I've been really enjoying the new Labyrinth features within the game. It's been fun kind of starting to learn how to use certain units that I never thought I was actually going to be using on a now daily basis, which has just been a lot. I think that a lot of people are enjoying having something extra to look forward to in the game. Even though I know sometimes it's overwhelming, it is still kind of nice to have something else that you can do. But yeah, man, life is good. Excited for the LA front. I think you and I are going to get a chance to see each other, so that's going to be fun and exciting.
That is correct, guys. If you didn't know, it is my pleasure to announce that both myself and Koopa Troopa will be heading on over to the SWC America's Cup this year. It's going to be Saturday, September 8th at the LA Waterfront. We're going to be there hanging out. Again, if you guys are in the area, you definitely need to stop on by. It's not just going to be a regular RTA tournament. It's going to be similar to a festival per se. So they're going to have some live music. They're going to have some cosplay. They're going to have a lot of fun things that you guys can take advantage of in order to get yourself some additional awards. And I do believe, Koopa, they're even giving away a swag bag that has like 750 crystals and some other goodies into it. So I'm pretty excited for the people that are going to be around to check that out.
They have these little fridge magnet things. I want one so bad. My fridge needs it.
Hey, you and me, we're going to figure out what we need to do to get one, okay?
Yes, sir.
But kind of getting back to what Koopa was saying, with that new content, the Labyrinth, one of the biggest things that I have to make note of is the fact that even though it's something new, it's something unique, it forces us to build new units and try out different things. And that's what I got to hand it to on the Compto side. Every single time they create new content for us, they're always forcing us to try new things. And so in today's video, we're going to be talking about their newest feature in the RTA tournament, the Guild Arena Battle, where we're going to be incorporating 15 unique monsters on each side here for the three-man team. The first unit that we're going to take a look at today is Ludo, the Fire Dice Magician. Tell me, Koopa, why do you feel this one is going to make or break it?
Ludo is one of those monsters where he can have he basically has a chance to take additional turns. And there's a lot of different things that he can do in terms of being able to control. He can take less damage, he can do less damage. And I mean, in the way that they're doing this format for the team Guild Arena battle system is that, we're going to be seeing players in a situation where they're going to have to draft a lot of unique monsters, but also different combinations of monsters that they're probably not used to. And so he's just one of those monsters that synergizes well with a lot of different units. Like he can hold in his own by himself. Mm-hmm. And so in a pick ban scenario, I just feel like he could be one of those units that if he's ruined well enough, and that's definitely something that you have to bring up because Ludo is by himself, without good runes, it might not be the scariest thing, but we've seen some of these Ludos in these top tier siege defenses where, especially in a 4-star siege defense, but even he'll be placed on a 5-star siege defense if he is ruined well enough.
Right.
he can be really scary.
Right, and I couldn't agree with you more here. Like just that third skill, the roll again, the ability to do upwards of 70% additional damage or reduce the amount of damage you take by 70% is a really unique mechanic. And given the fact that this whole time, overplay, the HP decreases, the attack decreases, but you still have this unique passive that's still going to allow him to mitigate some of the damage that may potentially come your way is going to be pretty strong. And, one of the things that we'll see in the trend of your list, and I'm glad you kind of put some of these units here, is the RNG aspect. With the limitations of the violent procs that we can obtain since season 2, obviously it's not going to be crazy RNG that's going to be coming your way, but you have these unique units like the Dice Magicians or the Brownie Magicians that can have that opportunity to proc that violent proc, the additional violent proc by means of the first skill. So if there's some unit that can definitely come out of the woodwork to kind of change the outcome of that match, I think this is one of those that can do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Ludo is going to be very scary, I think, on September 8th.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to see here. All right, next one up. Again, this is, I think, one of the ones that we actually saw quite a bit in the Special League. What was it? Not even a month ago. Whatnot. The Heart Magicians, and of course, now one of the ones we saw a lot, one of the ones we're seeing quite a bit now. This is probably, I think we would have to say, if we're going to talk about Triana first, I think she has to be one of the more popular, upcoming, like one of the more trendy units out there in the meta right now.
Yeah, I mean, I recently just got my Triana back. I had fed her away, and so I'm still getting used to how she can be used outside of like a Guild War, a Siege War offense. But we talk about her every day within the community. And in RTA, you're seeing her drafted very early on. Even she's not like one of those last I'll go with Triana. No, it's like she's like a part of their. It's apparent that she's part of their core draft setup. It's not even debatable. Sometimes it's who can pick her first. And when we all got a chance to see these players competing at prelims, it was hard for me to even remember a match where you weren't seeing a unit like Triana drafted, right. Which says a lot about her and where she fits into the current meta.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny, actually. So I thought she was actually so good that I actually invested Devilmon into her. I didn't even wait when I got it in there. Of course, we could have used the Harmonia fusion skill ups and whatnot, but I don't know about you. I am so lazy when it comes to certain things, and making fusion mats to go ahead and get ourselves some skill ups. I wasn't down with that, so I was trying to use it as soon as possible. I felt like it was an extraordinary unit, to say the least, right? And so, like you, I just just can't deny the fact that it's just such a strong unit out there. It's definitely a top pick, and we're gonna see it quite a bit. Here. So probably the next one that you were taking a look at, we threw in there Sonnet. This is actually one that we saw a little bit back in the day. One of your toughest competitors in the Mobile Masters, Mr. Foy. He definitely had some fun with this unit here. You think it's going to be coming back?
I think she could be. She does have a nice kit, and so it really depends if one of these players that ends up going to the tournament, if they do have a decent rune set on her. She is an option. Especially if they're running maybe some sort of control team. Mm-hmm. She pairs very nicely with the Light Paladin. And so if they were to run some kind of like Sonnet Light Paladin control team, that could work really well. So you don't see many players using Sonnet, but I mean, all the Heart Magicians are very strong. And so I would love to see her in action because drafted against the right team, she can be devastating.
Yeah, definitely. I really do think this one, I don't know why, but after you just like said the Light Paladin, I'm like, oh my god, that's crazy. That'd be super epic to see that kind of crowd control between your sleeves to provoke and everything. It'd be pretty cool. Early on, I didn't want to get involved with her. I have one, but I didn't skill her up just due to the fact that, all my other units that were crowd control based, were, AoEs based, they didn't have like, I didn't focus on one unit, here and there. So given the fact that she has that sleep mechanic, I felt like I was just going to be contradicting myself due to the fact I'd be breaking the sleep every single time. But you're right. She does have an amazing kit. And if you pick the right team, you can definitely make her work. Yeah.
Yeah, the only reason I say that is because yesterday we were doing RTA and the same thing happened to me, except it was a Light Heart Magician with a Light Paladin, and I barely even got to move. And I couldn't even believe it. It's like, that would actually work with Sonnet though too. It doesn't have to just necessarily be Celia. That could also be easily just as be Sonnet.
Right.
So
Definitely. Yeah. Taking a look at these new units right here. I think these units. This is actually the first one that I was looking at. Um, the mermaids. We'll start with Platy here. I don't know about you, but when I was talking to some of my guildies on the side, this was actually one of the first units that I mentioned that has that like budget type segment ability. And when we think about cooldown resets in the RTA meta today, it's pretty strong. But I feel like because of the fact that so many of the units are you have other amazing kits out there, they're going to be used. But I feel like this may be one of those units that somebody might throw in there.
yeah, yeah, just like you're saying, like Gani is probably one of the strongest in terms of like resetting cooldowns, just because he can also reset the entire team's attack bar. But
Right.
in this format with this many different unique monsters, you definitely I would not be surprised if we saw her. And then she does have a nice other kit, and she is max HP base, so she can be really tanky. Um, and even with a potential res, I mean, just with the res meta right now between all the Vanessas and the Trianas
Mm-hmm.
and everything else, like
Yep.
yeah, I would like to see her.
Right. Res metas, death prevention, whatever the case may be, it's definitely going to be in there, and she has one of the most diverse kits in the game. So, taking a look at one of her sisters here, Cichlid. This one I feel like got a lot of hype when we played around with it a little bit. Right, I think it was right around the HOH. Not a lot of people considered it, but then once we all had an opportunity to get it, build it, max skill it, we realized how strong this can be. This unit having one of the lowest cooldown skills for a second skill, that 2-turn air shield. And then even if that was enough, right, that wasn't enough. The third skill, crushed hopes, the strip, beneficial blocker, or right, removing the beneficial effect there, the defense break, and the skill tool down by 2 turns there with a 50% chance there. So, on a violent set, this skill can go crazy.
Yeah, I think if one of the players ends up drafting, like let's say Theo, that we might get a chance to see her to potentially shut him down. Um, I think probably the most common case of when you see when you're trying to use a unit like the Wind Mermaid is against like Theo teams. So if one of these players ends up using Theo on their team, then you might get to see her drafted as kind of like a counter pick.
Right, right, yeah. And I always forget too as well both of them or all the mermaids there, their first skill based on max HP. So the cool thing about it is you're building it fast, you're building it tanky, but you're also getting a decent amount of damage from it, due to the fact that it scales off of the HP there. And I believe Cichlid is one of the few units that actually has the air shield out of the five. Mermaids that has the ones that do have the air shield. She's the one that has it based on the max HP, I believe, when you awaken her. So really, really nice factor there. Let's see. So the next one we got going on, this also falls into the category of the RNG. Is going to be Draco, the Firebrand Magician. I definitely feel like this is one's going to be played around. The new improvement there on that third skill with the attack buff, speed, or the defense that can be brought in addition to just the immunity and attack part, which is pretty unique, despite the fact that just overall, it's just an amazing unit. So, what's your take on this one?
With this one with Draco, it kind of depends on if the Fire Ninja at Garo, if he gets drafted earlier on by one of the teammates, but you could I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe someone drafting like a Garo Draco combination just to get first turn with the huge speed lead that these ninjas have. And so that was kind of my take, is that maybe we could see a Draco if they're going to pair him up with a Garo, because you're seeing Fire Ninja even played by some of the top players in the world.
Mm-hmm.
There's it's still using him as a 4-star and as a primary pick with some like the other top nat fives.
Right.
Like so to see if you actually start synergizing him with an attack bar booster, then that would still be a really strong draft. So that was kind of my take on it. That maybe we'll see Draco. You saw him a lot more in like the 4-star league, but in these Guild War formats, yeah, might be there.
Right. And just to put it out there for the people that are curious, to be like, you know what, maybe he's right or maybe he's wrong. When you think about what kind of plan of action you have to take going into this, you got to understand that all these players have amazing units, amazing runes, but if they already know that they're not going to be able to use some of the best units out there, each of them, they have to consider, out of the units that they have, where's the potential lie? Where can they really create a composition that's going to throw the other opponent off guard and also, do extremely well for them? So given that knowledge, I don't know about you, but I feel like some of these players we may in fact them see, possibly use like a rune removal ticket, switch up a couple things, possibly take some of their best rune units that they know they're not going to use and put it on a unit like Draco that they're not expecting to, or some other people might not expect to do. So just to catch them off guard, I mean,
That's really true. Like you have your especially if you're able to do it where you have player A, player B, and player C, where player C is always drafting their units last, and that player has their best, AAA runes on these oddball units that you really don't see that often,
right.
and that way they really have like an advantage at that point when they know, your popular units are all drafted out. They don't have a chance at picking them.
Right.
And then their whole monster box isn't even ruined in such a way.
Right. And then, given the fact of not just what units that the players have or what units that they have, but also the order that which they attack. Maybe that might be controlled by the tournament per se. But if it is a choice, or if it does come down to maybe it's pick or whatnot, that could once it's kind of pick, and let's say it's set, maybe they announce it 6 hours, 12 hours prior to, that may impact how they go about attacking, because of course they may be going first or second, but if they know the opponent that attacking, they know what kind of things that they generally use. That might change nothing, but that might change everything. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. So again, kind of going back when we just talked about both Draco and Garo there. Obviously, Garo needs no introduction, like you said. He's been playing. He's been getting quite a bit of play time in the PvP world, and with the introduction of some of the more meta damage prevention units, the Trianas, the Vanessas, it even gives it more of a reason to stay alive. Anything else you wanted to add for Garo?
Hope they have a counter pick for him. That's for sure.
Right?
Whoever's up against him, yeah. Hopefully, you got some multi hitters.
Yeah. Gotta have the multi hitters, man. Gotta have the multi hitters. Cool. Let's take a look at another one of the units that may trump what we just talked about here. Trying to get the first turn, bringing in Garo and Draco, or maybe any other kind of natural 5-star base team that's looking to get that first turn. We have a unit that can shake up just about anything when it comes to its passive and the RNG that it brings here. Antares, the Fire Lich. Tell me a little bit about it.
So he's an interesting unit where every time that your opponent is taking a turn, he has a chance to essentially, is what they call cut. And he can potentially be granted a turn. And a lot of the players will have him ruined on like Despair. And so if they don't have immunity, he can potentially stun their whole team and absorb an enemy's attack bar. And then whoever is playing the Fire Lich will then get to move. And so he's kind of like one of those emergency units where maybe you find yourself in a bind. Based off your opponent's draft, they're going to go first. There's not much you can really do. And so you can use the Fire Lich to your advantage to potentially reverse the scenario, regardless of their team, where the Fire Lich kind of is drafted as a way where, okay, you got to move, but I've got this chance where I get to move too, and I could potentially stun your whole team. So he could be very dangerous. He's not a common pick, but when you do see him picked and you get to see his passive actually work, Transcendence, you could see why he's one of those units that people actually will invest runes into. So we could potentially see him at the LA front as well.
Yeah, and the one of the things to also point out to, I've seen it quite a bit, not just with like him, but maybe with Tessarian, depending on what the other opponent drafts. They got if the first player is the one with the final pick in there. I feel like there's units like this that, depending on what they lay out, could potentially force the opponent to outright ban them, just due to the fact of they're gambling on the first turn and they don't even want to take a chance on that. So it's only 15%, right? But because of the fact that it's 2 to 3 units moving, it could potentially just mess up one of them, and that could be the end of it.
And that's what we say. It's only 15%, but Violent is only 22%. So this is much less. So we all know how many times Violent procs. So this guy, you can see this guy procking all the entire match back and forth. So
I am a testimonial to Fwa's channel. I've seen his videos and his streams, and it definitely doesn't feel like 15%. That's for sure.
Mm-mm.
All right, let's see here. There is another unit out there that got a lot of love in the early PvE world, but saw a little bit of light in PvP. Probably haven't seen it all too much, but Mr. Koopa believes that it could break away for this Golden Ring Battle tournament coming up here in a couple of weeks here. Verdehile, the Fire Vampire here. Tell us about what you think about it. Like, what kind of strategy you think people will do with it?
So Verde, there's so many different ways that we can build Verde.
Mm-hmm.
We start out with him in mid game with dragons, and you kind of expand from there. But now that we're doing these, these RTA and these different PvP matches, is that you can have these Ferrari Verdes. They can be super fast and they can actually be the attack bar booster. And it can kind of catch someone off guard. So I think that part of him can be dangerous, that you don't really know how fast he is. It kind of also goes back to, are they going to use a Garo lead, to give him that extra 30%?
Makes sense.
But even so, even if, like, let's say he's not on like a crazy fast set, even like a tanky Verde on like a revenge set, and like a triple revenge,
Yep.
or like violent revenge, those can actually be really scary too. So there's just so many different ways to build him, and that's what can make him scary, is that in the draft, because you don't exactly know how he's going to be ruined, that right there can be kind of throw someone off, and they may overthink it,
Right.
and they may draft a different unit. So
Yeah.
I would hopefully we get to see him.
I
But,
hope we do too. I think it's one of those scary units that, like you said, if they build it in a certain fashion, we have no idea what people do. And like I said, if somebody is a little bit more on the, let's say for example, they're kind of focused around a mid range comp or whatnot, maybe not too focused on their first turn per se, but then they're like depending on what their other guildmates bring, they're like, hey, I gotta have more of a first turn kind of meta or first turn kind of strategy in play. Like, let me go ahead and take my 300 speed Swift set and let's throw it on for it. Let's see what can happen. So it's crazy. It's crazy. Swift Revenge, it's coming. If it's not double revenge or triple revenge, it's coming. Swift Revenge. Here we go. All right, next one up here. We kind of got these all categorized in a nice little combo, because this is one of those teams or units in the teams that definitely you'll see kind of paired up with there. So your Fantastic Four when it comes to the ignore defense meta. You got Emma, Dozer, Copper, and Olivia. Tell me about this team. How do you think people will incorporate it if so?
well, one of the nice things about this is that, in this scenario where you have these guildmates that are, everyone's kind of, they have like a general sense of like what kind of a team they're all going to pick. Like maybe one player is going to draft heavy control. You've got one person that's playing heavy bruiser, and then you've got maybe the third guy or one of them who's going to go the, I'm gonna go for the ignore defense comp.
Yeah.
If they do have their fastest runes on, units like Olivia or Wind Horse, or maybe a little bit slower but tankier to take second turn with Emma, and then maybe an immunity or just full shield will. I mean, when you pair those units with units like Copper or Dozer, they can pick off like 1 to 2 units like guaranteed, and they've got really good sustain to be able to repeat the process and just pick your team off one at a time. And if they are able to go up against the right opponent that doesn't have the ability to even counter draft it, at that point in the guild battle match, there's nothing they're going to be able to do.
Right. Gonna...
There's nothing they'll be able to do. And so I think it could be really, it's powerful already, even in a scenario where they can pick any unit in their entire monster box. But in a team battle, where they're maybe even limited and can't pick some of those counter picks, that might be a really devastating combination. The only way to like beat that is if the other player realizes it and starts stealing some of their units at that point.
Right. And they change their whole thought process of what they're doing because they're too afraid of what's going on. I got a couple of questions for you. One, let's do what we always do. Despite the fact that this series has always been kind of focused on late to end game content, I always like to try to throw a little bit of a tip in there for maybe some of the early to mid game players that are starting to break away into RTA. This is something that we see quite a bit, especially in like the special leagues or whatnot. People trying to get the first turn using ignore defense comps, where they do pair up like an Emma, Olivia alongside with Bulldozer and Copper. If you saw that getting drafted, let's say you have some options to ban here, what would you generally go for? Would you take away either one of the damage dealers, or would you try to take away one of their buffers to avoid getting the first turn and knocking you out?
That's a really good question. I have a very terrible win rate against the Dozer, Copper, Olivia, Wind Horse, all those ones, and that's you don't see them that often. But when you do see them, you know that their rune quality is pretty much they're probably going to go first with one of their attack bar boosters. And so I usually try to ban one of their damage dealers. And I feel like that usually works out better for me because depending on who their team is, like they're gonna get some kind of defense buff. They're gonna be able to get at least one of her units picked off. And I would say if you have the ability to draft some sort of buff stripper, like a Juno, or is really strong right now, or a Praha or a Tiana, just to be able to clear all of their buffs, then that might be enough to where if you're in that scenario, then you could maybe leave one of their DPS because then they're not going to have their defense buff.
Right.
And then that basically takes out Copper. And then if your units are tanky enough, the Dozer might not be able to get a kill either. And so it really depends. If you don't have a buff stripper, then maybe just try and ban one of the damage dealers and then counter pick or pick you good units that will be able to kill that other unit very easily. Right. Like Kali is a great pick against that team. And she's only a 3-star. Right. And she could ignore, she has elemental advantage over Copper and Dozer, and so she can one-shot either of them. So using something like that might be a good way to beat them, especially if you have a really fast attack buffer like Kona, Tion, or Megan.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, I've always, it's funny because I've done the banning on the units, but I've also considered banning one of the buffers, and somebody like Olivia that has the ability to gain so much turn advantage for their team. One of the most unique natural 4-star kind of commands type, research type abilities on her kit. Super strong. But like you said, it just kind of depends on, what they're laying out, what you're laying out. If you can avoid them getting the first turn, generally these units are built very high damage, but not a lot of speed. So you may be able to get the first turn. Like you said, bring in a Kali or something like that and just, wreck phase, take them out. So, it's something interesting to think about. I've always kind of struggled with it myself, but I've leaned towards some of the buffers per se, because like you said, if I don't have like a buff stripper, if I can take away their opportunity to get the buffs that they need to get the one-shot kill, then yeah, I can control the damage they do there and not start off the match with like a 3v4 or whatever. So, all right, let's take a look at the next set of units here, and I say next set because Koopa truly believes that the twins have an amazing kit. A couple of the twins here have an amazing kit, and these two we do believe that we're going to be seeing here. So we got Shayna and Martina. Let's go ahead and talk about Shayna first. I feel like she's the more popular one that we're going to see.
Yeah, so Shayna has the speed lead, which in Summoner's War is always very important. And so her as a pick right now, paired with other units, I don't feel as unreasonable to think that it could happen. And just with her ability to AoE stun and absorb attack bar, or defense break on first skill, like wait, she doesn't defense break on first skill.
I think her passive provides the defense break, right? Yeah, her passive provides the defense break, and then
I was like reading it first skill. I was like, wait, what? I thought she totally could defense break on first skill. Yeah. Well, she can. Okay. So yeah, because of all of her skills and just her being able to defense break on first skill or stun, and then her being able to be drafted with one of her sisters, they're extremely, extremely scary. Whether she's paired up with Maruna, Sabrina, Zenobia, Martina, any of them, she can be very, very, very scary. I know that I had mentioned that, I'm maybe predicting the Shayna Martina combination because Martina, she has the ability to buff strip. And even without Shayna, she can be really strong too. And I've seen it. I have to give credit once again to Faye, is that I've seen, I didn't really think that a Shayna Martina composition with just with how squishy that they can be, drafted against some of like the craziest meta nat 5s, super bruiser team, units like Wusa with shield and immunity, I would never even think that they even have a chance at winning. And yet I'm watching these two just decimate these teams, and it just blows my mind. Now I know the rune quality needs to be, pretty high, but even the fact that they even have a chance at winning was still very surprising. So,
right. And one thing
to see it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and one thing that kind of threw out too, and this is something that you saw as a competitor last year, despite the fact that some people bring units that we may be expecting, given what we know about their monster box, the build might be completely unexpected. One of the units that kind of come into mind is the Faye. Last year we saw a lot of people playing around with Faye, and we're thinking, oh yeah, this is just gonna go straight yellow. It's gonna do a ton of damage, and what we're gonna see it there. But because of how much damage it can do, we have seen a couple people play around with like a hybrid set, so it can be a little bit tankier if the other opponent decides to go out. So my question to you is, given the fact of how strong these two units can be, and considering their type of utility that they both bring, could you like foresee a possible like hybrid build, or do you think, given the fact that they're attack based monsters, maybe the base stats are not going to be enough to justify going that route?
It really depends. It depends if they have them on like a fast enough violent set or just a rune set in general, to not be dependent on, let's say, a Bastet or some kind of attack bar booster.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really going to depend on that, because then in the scenario that you're talking about, like let's say going like the Faye route, she's a little bit more versatile where she doesn't necessarily have to be as fast. And if her passive kicks in and she ignores defense, or not her passive, but if her third skill just ignores defense, she could potentially eliminate 2 to 3 opponents with just one attack, as long as she has attack buff. So it's just going to really depend on how these players, where they decide to allocate all of their runes. But just with how new the Shayna Martina is, and just with maybe players not having an exact way to draft against it, that makes them kind of scary and powerful. Whereas someone like Faye, it's like, okay, I know how to play against this. This
Right.
isn't my first time.
Yeah. I got you. Cool, cool, cool. All right. Let's take a look at the next unit that we got. Moving on to the light category for the natural 4 stars, we have Mihael, the light sylphid. Again, just an amazing kid overall, but one of the things that constantly gets forgot about when it comes to somebody's like natural 4 star units that we generally see, that cooldown, that reset ability on the second skill, super nice, super nice.
And she could actually be one of those units too that you see drafted with like the tankier bruiser, ignore defense composition that we were talking about earlier.
Correct, correct.
Where they kind of set up their whole team on Shield Will. They're drafting like Dozer Copper, but then they play Mihael as that way to give the defense buff and to be able to offer some sustained.
Yeah, good call on that one. Yeah. So, outside of that kind of style of play, do you think she could fit in any role, given the fact of her second skill, what she provides her, or do you think she's going to be kind of built more around that like copper bulldozer kind of setup?
Well, she's also really good with like Feng Yan, or just a good sustain unit in general.
Mm-hmm.
I know that in the 4 star league she was a lot more popular, but now that we're getting into like this larger team battle format, it'd be if the player does have her, I think that she's definitely something that is in the back of that player's mind, where it's like, I could draft this, I could do this. 3 turn support buff, like defense is very strong, and so I would definitely always have her on the table if it were me. And I know that I have a hard time going up against her. She has a really high win rate, just from past experience. So I just wouldn't put it past a player drafting Mihael
Definitely.
in
Cool.
these tournaments.
All right, let's take a look at the Barbarian Kings here. We're going to take a look at the light one, Mimir. This is another great one that we saw quite a bit in the Guild War and Siege, but as you have stated, this may be something that will be picked around in the Guild Arena.
Yeah, both of them, the Dark and Light Barb, they've got a lot going on in their kits, and the Light Barb can be built a little bit tankier. And I mean, all the barbs can be built kind of tanky, but they can all just do tons of damage, like whether it's the Wind Barb, the Light Barb, or the Dark Barb. Um, Especially with the Dark Barb being able to take all the turns in the world.
Right.
Yeah, man, no, they're scary, and they're just overall good picks up against a lot of the different units right now, and sometimes it's difficult to find an answer to figure out what to do against them if they are built to maybe, let's say, a little bit tankier.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, given the fact of how that third skill works, I mean, it's literally denying the opponent potentially upwards of 2 turns. Due to the fact you got the sun and reduce the attack bar there, so that can if they don't have anything that can get them out of that hump there, with regards to like a cleanse or something like that, that can really screw up the flow, especially if they're really looking to do their damage those first couple of turns there. So Let's see. And then Hungrier, obviously, there's nothing really else to say. Like you said, the king of RNG. That 40% is a true 40%. We've seen a ton of videos about it. I don't doubt this unit's ability to change the pace of a match for the better there. So pretty excited. I'm hoping that we do get to see that one there. So the next one that we got for you guys is another light unit. This one I actually own, so it's easy to find on my monster collection. The only LD Nat 4 that you can probably call like the only natural 6-star in the game, Armana. He is God. So OP, the light Anubis.
Yep. Not a day goes by where I didn't wish I fed mine into my my lappies.
You did not.
No, I did. That's why it was hard. It was hard when I made the list. I was just like, well, I gotta throw a Martin on there.
Oh my God, not like that this.
Good. And it's funny that you decide to describe him the way you do, because on the inside, I'm dying right now.
Oh my God, I cannot believe you did that. Oh man,
it was an accident. It was a long night of Netflix. I was very tired.
Oh no!
It was the first week of playing. I didn't even know about the lock feature in the game.
Right.
Because he was my first LD scroll. It was my very first lightning.
Oh my gosh.
So like you, how you have him illuminated on your monster box list, I also have him illuminated. Except he's not awakened because he never got to see the light of day.
Oh, no pun intended.
Oh, I punned that.
Pun that hard. Oh my goodness. So obviously this unit really doesn't need any introduction. It has a revive. It has a cleanse, branding, defense break, hit point disturb. It has so many different components in its kit. It's just one of those units that there's really no reason not to use it, given the fact of the limited amount of units that they may use. The last one that we got going on here is actually one of the units that we were kind of talking about a little bit on the dark front. This is one that we actually saw quite a bit in 2017 with some of the Summoners for live PvT tournaments here, and we possibly will see yet again just due to its kit, its speed lead, and its overall potential with its RNG and its kit to do some really good damage here. We got Faye, the Dark KFG. What's your take on her?
Little Faye, she's we talked a little bit about her earlier. I mean, just with her ability to provide speed lead, ignore defense, but then she also offers the utility of the bus strip on the skill too. And there's been times where even I have been able to catch players off guard that she can even do that. Mm-hmm. And it really, you could just tell that they were surprised by how she can buff strip on her skill too, because after she does do it, they just sit there and they don't even know what to do.
Right.
So she can't catch people off guard that way. And if she does get a chance to play a Dark Dragon attack, her third skill, let's say even if it doesn't ignore defense, is that if you're going to attack her, you have to make sure that you either get her a stun on Faye, or that you're probably going to kill her, because with her a chance to revenge, she can reply with Energy Ball, break your defense, but then have a chance to go into Shadowless Kick, strip your immunity or whatever you have, and she can be very deadly even on the defense.
Gotcha. And I don't know if it happened at the tournament per se, but I know you've had a lot of experience in RTA where you've dealt with some of the yellow comps that incorporated maybe a couple of attack bar boosters with Lucian, Faye, and then another possible DPS. So when that kind of scenario comes into play for you, what's kind of your go-to ban when you see some of those YOLO comps built around some of the ignore defense units like these two?
With Faye, it's because I've seen and I've used her and I've seen how more than not she probably won't ignore defense, and she just chucks her energy balls and they don't really do that much damage. I'm not too scared with Faye. I usually leave her on the table. I more so try to ban their attack bar booster, like their Bastet, or someone else that's trying to get them first turn and try to cut their team. Or if they're also pick with Lucian, because he's such a concrete monster, where if Lucian has attack buff, and if you don't have a full fire team, your team's probably just assume that every unit on your team is probably going to die. And so sometimes even just banning the Lucian instead makes more sense than you take your chances with Faye. So it's either banning the Lucian or banning one of their attack bar boosters, preferably the Bastet, to take the attack buff away if she's the only one that's buffing attack.
Sure. I couldn't agree more there. Ignore defense with the attack buff is is nasty. Simply put,
Hmm.
nasty. So that's pretty much our list here for the natural 4-star game changers that we could potentially be seeing on Saturday, September 8th at the America's Cup over there in the LA Waterfront. Again, myself as well as Koopa Troopa will be there, so I'm super excited to see what goes down when it comes to these semifinalists. Big shout out once again to Dr. Joseph Thompson, Tiger, and Faint Memories for making it all the way to the top four. Good luck to you guys. Any final words for you, my man?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be there and to get a chance to meet everyone as well. We don't get a chance to come together as a community very often like this, and so I'm really excited to be able to see the players, the community, and the Come to Us team. So and of course yourself, Mr. Childish.
Yes,
It's gonna be a pleasure like always.
as always, my man. All right, guys. So again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And if you guys can do me a favor, I'm sure you guys are already following, but if you are not, then I need you to go ahead and check the link down below. My man, Koopa Troopa is not just a YouTuber, but also a Twitch streamer. That's his main platform. So if you want to go ahead and check him out, that's twitch.tv/Koopa Troopa 787. Give him the love that you guys have shown me over the years. I would greatly appreciate it, okay? That is going to be it, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It's your boy Childish and Koopa Troopa with Childish Plays checking out. Take care, and we will see you all in 2 weeks at the SWC America's Cup. Take care.